shall we? Hello, everyone. You're all welcome for today's panel, which called the Safe Haven Freedom Talk about Uyghurs. This panel was started by, arranged by the Malmö, Sweden, Malmö City Culture Department, which today we are sitting here. So that today's panel will be chaired by Dr. Rune Steenberg. So from now, I will pass it to you. Please, stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you to both the museum and to Uyghur PEN for organizing this talk and for hosting it. My name is Rune Steenberg. I am an anthropologist focused on Uyghur and Xinjiang or East Turkestan studies at the Palatsky University in Olomouc. And I today have the honor of chairing and moderating this panel, for which we've been very lucky to gather a lot of international experts, quite well known across the scene of both people in academia and also in politics and in activism, looking at the very worrying developments in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, or East Turkestan as it is also known, over the last few years. But some of you who are visiting and listening in on this might not be familiar with every one of these. So therefore, the way we're going to proceed now is I will briefly introduce each of our panelists and then move on to give the word to each of them in turn to their opening and introductory statement. After this, we will have a more general discussion. I will be asking some questions, and we also take questions from the audience. You can send it to us on the Facebook page, I believe, and also on WhatsApp. It should all be the information for how to send in the questions should all be in the on the event description on the Facebook page. So without further ado, I would like to start introducing Jewher Ilham, a graduate from Indiana University and a campaigner for human rights, Uyghurs' rights, and also for the release of her father, renowned professor of economics, Ilham Tohti, who has been imprisoned unrightfully since 2014. Jewher Ilham works for is an associate at the Workers' Rights Consortium at the moment. Then we have Dolkun Isa, former pro-democracy student leader from the 1980s, who came to Europe in the 90s and co-founded the World Uyghur Congress, of which he is the current president. He has received a number of international prizes for his human rights work and advocacy, and is also, or has also served as the vice president of the Unrepresented Nations and People's Organization of the United Nations. Then we have Sairagul Sauytbay, a former leader or head of 5 kindergartens in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Oblast region. She was back then still a staunch believer in the system until she became a teacher in a re-education camp between 2017 and 2018. And in 2018, in the summer, was able to flee to Kazakhstan, was imprisoned there, put on trials, and later released. She now lives in Sweden and has just published a book on her experiences in the camps. She's also received the award of the International Women of Courage. Razigul Asim, also a witness of the Chinese clampdown in East Turkestan. She had settled in Albania after studying geography and working in tourism and also studying English. Settled in Albania in 2010, but returned to East Turkestan in 2017, where she experienced the Chinese crackdown, especially also touching upon her family. We have Nury Turkel, the president of the Uyghur American Association and chairman of the board of the Uyghur Human Rights Project, also a co-founder of this project, and also more recently the commissioner of the US Commission on International Religious Freedom. And lastly, we have a co-organizer of this event, Kaiser Al ÖzHun. He is the president of the International Uyghur PEN Center, himself a cultural anthropologist, also artist and software developer and designer. And he's a founding member of the PEN International Uyghur Center. So all of these people we here bring together in the panel today will be discussing the latest developments, especially over the last few years, but also hopefully the newest developments taking place in East Turkestan, also known as Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, where we since 2014 have seen a very harsh government clampdown on the local Uyghur, Kazakh and other minority populations that in 2016 escalated into mass internment camps, mass incarceration on a scale not seen since the Cultural Revolution and probably not even then, an extreme international human rights crisis and crimes. Our panelists have all experienced this on their own bodies, basically, through their families, and some of them even personally, directly. Today, we have a chance to talk to them about it, to ask them about their experiences and also about the work that they do now, because what all of these panelists also have in common is that they are very active in informing the world about what has been going on and what is going on in the region, and also in working towards solutions, both for the Uyghurs and the region, but also for other peoples and for the problems, the worldwide developments that this has in part arisen out of. So because Jewher Ilham is has to leave early, she will be the first one to whom I will give the word. And Jewher, I would like to start out asking you to tell us a little bit about your father and how you came to be an activist on his behalf and also on the behalf of the Uyghurs in general. Please, you have the word.
Thank you very much, Rune, for your wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone. My name is Jewher Ilham. As a daughter, I would like to start by sharing some of my personal stories and how I became an advocate for my father and for the Uyghur people. When I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a dancer or a translator, and my father really encouraged me to get on the translating path. But then whole lots of things happened and disrupted my plans. I happen to be the daughter of Ilham Tohti, who many of you may know. For those who don't know, my father, Ilham Tohti, my father is a well-known Uyghur economist who is now serving a life sentence in China for fostering dialogue between the Han Chinese and the Uyghur people, and for advocating respect for religious and cultural beliefs of our people, and for equal opportunity in pursuing our dreams and the things that actually motivate us. On February 2nd, 2013, I would never forget that date. My father and I were on our way to America together, and he was to be a visiting scholar at Indiana University, where I went to school and graduated. He was stopped at the airport and prevented from leaving the country, and I was a teenager. I was a freshman. I just became a freshman in college at that time. I was studying Arabic and hoping to become a translator. I was planning to stay in the US for 2 to 3 weeks and help my father settle down. But as you can see, I'm still here and never left. And at the same time, I'm on the other side of the world, away from my family and my home. And that was the last time I saw my father in person and my younger brothers as well. After I left the country, my father was under house arrest for 11 months. It wasn't the first time he was put under house arrest. He used to always tell me, after he was released, he used to always tell me, it's okay, Balam, it's okay, my child. And he would continue his work and I would just remain silent. And I thought, okay, maybe it was okay. On January 15th, 2014, my father was taken away and disappeared for more than 3 months without any word. That was a time I knew it wasn't okay anymore and I couldn't remain silent. So you see, the motivation to do the work I am doing now is very personal. Up to 2017, I was mainly advocating for the right only for my father, for my family. And when I learned that hundreds of thousands of families were experiencing similar or even worse treatments, that was a time I knew it wasn't okay anymore and I couldn't remain silent for I knew I had to start advocating for the rights of my people as well. As many of you may already know, over the last few years, it is estimated that there are over 1 to 1.8 million Uyghurs and members of other predominantly Muslim minorities, such as Kazakhs and Kyrgyz, have been sent to re-education camps or forced labor centers, which I call them concentration camps, where they face a number of abuses. And in fact, recently, when many people argue, how do you get the numbers and how do you prove that these camps existed? Actually, the government proved it themselves just a few weeks ago. The State Council Information Office of China released a white paper stating that since 2014, there are over 1.29 million people per year passing through vocational training centers. And I think this is one of the many terms the Chinese government uses to refer to internment and re-education camps or concentration camps, and which I think this constitutes the largest mass detention of an ethno-religious community since the World War II. For the past few years, the Chinese government is also transporting the Uyghurs and other Turkic and Muslim people to other parts of China, where they're working in factories under conditions that strongly indicate forced labor. And those are systematic and state-sponsored forms of forced labor, which intersects with other types of human rights abuses, which includes forced sterilization, family separation, destruction of the agriculture, which in order to wipe out century-old cultural landmarks, undermining the Uyghur culture, and arbitrary detention, political indoctrination, and pervasive surveillance, which I will have to lead to the topic of what I'm currently working on. So I'm currently mainly working on the forced labor issues, the mechanisms that brands, retailers, and independent labor rights inspectors would normally use to investigate possible forced labor is impossible in China, because the Chinese government has placed the entire region in a vice grip of repression, surveillance, and terror. This makes it impossible for any worker suffering coercion to tell the truth to an investigator or an auditor. So given the impossible task of conducting conducting due diligence in the Uyghur region, I strongly encourage brands to sign on to the brand commitment to exit the Uyghur region, which is what I'm currently focusing on. This brand commitment to exit the Uyghur region, which is initiated by the Coalition to End Uyghur Forced Labor. This coalition to end Uyghur forced labor has been endorsed by over 300 organizations all around the globe. And the organization I am currently working at is also one of the coalition member. So people, whoever is interested, please visit the enduyghurforcedlabor.com to learn more information. The only way that the corporates and brands can ensure that they're not importing goods made with forced labor or in some way being complicit in the forced labor is to leave the Uyghur region entirely. And the brand commitment provides specific actions and guidance for brands to follow to prevent from being complicit. So I ask people who are listening to this panel, please, please check out the website where you will be able to find information about what can be done about the forced labor situation, what has been done, and who are the brands and corporates that are involved in forced labor. And I know that the brand commitment provides steps that are not going to be easy for people to follow, but it is feasible. And in the end of my talk here today, I would like to make few wishes. As I am a selfish daughter, I would like to start my wish for my father first. I wish my father can be released from the prison in China as soon as possible. I hope I can just receive a call this afternoon and say my father is out. And I wish all the other innocent people who have been wrongfully detained in China can be released and be united with their families as soon as possible. And I am also very much looking forward to see more and more brands can sign on to the brand commitment to exit the Uyghur region. And my in order to do that, we will need consumers, who is listening to this panel, please push those brands to make that happen. And my last wish is I hope all my wishes come true. And thank you all very much for having me today. I apologize, I will have to leave early today for a work engagement, but it is so nice to be invited to this event. Thank you, Kaiser for inviting me. And it's so nice to be here with amazing leading activists. Please continue the good work and stay safe during this crucial time, and hope to see you all soon in another time. I promise I will stay longer next time. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a really great introduction. Because we know you're going to have to leave soon, I'm actually just going to follow this up with a very short question before we move on to Nury Turkel. I was just wondering, I think this question of labor conditions, forced or coerced labor, super important. Not just in the Uyghur region, but also on a global scale. And I think this is really one of the things that we, for the future, if we want a well-functioning world, need to be looking into much more closely. I was wondering if you were looking just at the Uyghur region, or because you're working with a group or an association that looks at it also in a global perspective, whether you can somehow connect this to a global perspective, because I think this is also one of the things we need to do in order to get people's attention focused on the human rights abuses taking place in the Uyghur region, that we need to connect it to larger topics. And then maybe secondly, I know this is going to be very difficult to do short, but whether you could give us a bit of an idea, if these brands move out of the Uyghur region altogether, what is going to happen? What is the idea? What is the dream of the progression of this? If you can do this in 2 minutes before we move on, or just give us a basic idea that we can use to think with further on in this discussion.
For your first question, for many years I have been working alone. I haven't been working officially in any organization. I worked with a lot of people, but I've only worked by myself. But it is very difficult with one person's power. I realized that I need to work with people who are expert on this. Unfortunately, I myself is not an expert. So I decided to join the organization Worker Rights Consortium, which it includes employees that are experts in forced labor crisis. And they have branches all around the world. They have field staffs all around the world focusing on forced labor crisis. And until a few years ago, they started to adopt on this forced labor crisis in the Uyghur region, this specific issue. And they decided to hire people who are knowledgeable or who is very passionate about this cause. So I applied for the job, and I decided that we can benefit each other and contribute to the cause together, since we all have the same goal, which is end Uyghur forced labor. And therefore, that's why I am working at this organization and on the specific issue. And my job title is actually a project associate for combating Uyghur forced labor specifically. And I really do hope, with the help of leading experts on this issue, that we can lead this to something positive in the future. I know this is going to be a long fight, because brands, they do care about their how much they sell, where they the benefits, the financial, the markets, etc. So it is going to be a long fight, but it is feasible. As I mentioned, it's going to be very difficult steps for them to take, but it is feasible. And we do already have few brands that are agreed to sign on the call to action, the brand's commitment. So that is a very good sign. We're hoping to get as many brands as possible. A lot of the brands are agreed to take actions, but are free to sign officially because of fear for retaliation from the Chinese government. And that is why we need more and more brands to sign, because if there's one brand or two brands are afraid of being retaliated, then that is even more important to have all brands to be unified at this stage. So China can target on one brand, two brands. Can they target 20 brands, 40 brands, 60 brands, 100 brands? So that is why we need to work hard to make that happen, to persuade more people to sign. And how do we persuade more brands? Which is
a lot of sense. I think, unfortunately, I'll have to stop you because you need to go. And also, before Nury Turkel gets on, these details are super relevant and super interesting, and I hope we can have you on at some other point to discuss them more in detail. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will now, just out of time reasons, move directly on to Nury Turkel, because I know that he will also have to leave quite soon. So Nury, welcome, and very great to see you. You have started your work a lot earlier than Jewher, and you came along a different path, so to speak. Maybe you could speak a little bit to how you got into working on the Uyghur issue, how you got into the position that you're in right now, and what you see as the main issues and the main path forward for both activism, politics, and academia in dealing with what is happening at the moment in the Uyghur regions. Please, you have the word, Nury Turkel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate the organizers to invite me to be part of this important conversation. I'm so glad to see my fellow Uyghur friends and colleagues in this panel. I've been working on Uyghur human rights almost 2 decades now. I came to the United States in 1995, formally get involved in the Uyghur human rights work a year after the bloody crackdown of the Gulju massacre. Gulju is my father's place of birth, that has a direct relevance to my own family. So fast forward, I have been immersed in the ongoing crisis, addressing the concerns, engaging in public education, engaging in media relations, engaging with governments, making policy recommendations since early 2018. I mentioned these timeline because I never thought being in the center of the Uyghur advocacy in Washington, I never thought that we would see this level of focus, interest in the Uyghur issue, the Uyghurs' freedom struggle. We'll be dealing as a horrific situation. It's a genocide. At the same time, we have been able to accomplish quite a few remarkable, successful progress in the Uyghur advocacy work in Washington in particular. I was appointed to my current role by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this past May. Before that, I served as the president of Uyghur American Association and the previous director and the chairman of the board. I'm not currently the president of the UAA, Uyghur American Association. But in addition to my policy advocacy work, I'm also a full-time lawyer. I have been practicing law almost 15 years now, 15, 16 years. I'm currently also an in-house counsel for a European telecommunications giant. So I have different responsibilities. So focusing on what I do with the U.S. government, I'm a U.S. government official. I am one of the 9 commissioners in the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom that was established with the mandate of 1998 International Religious Freedom Act. The commissioners are appointed by the President of the United States and the leaders of the both Senate and the House. The term for commissioners is 2 years, can serve up to 4. The law that I mentioned earlier mandates that the commission focuses on the international religious freedom, document, report, and make recommendations to the President of the United States, Secretary of State, and Congress. This is a very important role, particularly for me, because I came to the United States as an immigrant. This should be a kind of a model for European countries to also look into the immigrant population. Actually, immigration is not a bad thing. United States being an immigrant country gives opportunities to people who make home and become a contributing members of the society. Currently in the US government, there are 2 of us with Uyghur background. There's an official who is a China director at the National Security Council, and I have this responsibility, mostly working on the issues outside of the United States of foreign policy, public advocacy. So because of my role, I focus highly and deliberately on the foreign policy recommendation to both the United States government and the US allies and partners. We all know that China is a growing global partner, but that should not be used as a defeatist excuse for not doing anything. United States government has already set the example by showing historic and unprecedented responses with the passage of the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act in June and enactment at the same month. We have a legislation mandate to address the Uyghur crisis, along with covering the issues that you have briefly touched, the forced labor prevention, and also protection and reporting of Uyghur American community from a Chinese harassment. We also have a mandate now that requires the United States State Department to investigate, the report and document human rights abuses. And this is the level of the industrial level of scale of the oppression, the atrocities committed against the Uyghur people by the Chinese government cannot be handled by one specific country or government. And this is not about Trump administration. This is about U.S. policy. For those of you who don't understand, maybe who are not familiar with religious freedom issues in the United States, it is considered as the first human rights. It is in the Constitution. It's in the Declaration of Independence. So whenever the U.S. government talks about religious freedom, people should not mix it up with a certain political party or occupant of the White House. This is a bipartisan, bicameral issue, as it has been demonstrated in the support that the Uyghur people enjoy in the US Congress. Of those 435 members of Congress, 100 senators, the Uyghur freedom movement enjoys literally 97% of the support. If it's 100%, that would be a little unusual, but overwhelming support have been lent to the Uyghurs cause. So this should be a model for other countries to consider. And the Chinese have been telling the international community exactly the way that I described, linking US position on certain issues with the Uyghur issue, misinforming public that this is about hampering China. And also Dolkun, my good friend Dolkun will, I'm sure will touch upon the international institutions such as the UN, how it has become a tool for the Chinese to extend its oppression to countries around the world. And then I will, during the Q&A session, I will be more than happy to discuss what government should do, what has been done in the United States, and what are the individual responsibilities. And I have been also working deliberately on forced labor prevention issues, both at home and abroad. And I'd be happy to address any questions, any issues that involves forced labor policy and legislative issues. With that, I'd like to thank you again organizing this event, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion.
Thank you very much. That is really super valuable information, also especially as to how these different organs function of especially the US government and administration that we are so dependent on in so many ways to get things done on a global scale, and not least in relation to the Uyghur region. So we will definitely return to you. We look forward to seeing you back for the Q&A session.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Great. So now we will move on to Razigul Asim, who, as I said before, experienced herself and on her relatives what the Chinese crackdown and mass incarceration looked like when she in 2017 returned to the region after having been away for quite a while, having settled in Albania. And Razigul, welcome. It's great to have you here, and it's great that you stand forth and tell us about your first-hand experience. That is a very brave and very important thing to do. Please, could you tell us a little bit about your experience? What happened when you returned? What did you see, and how has your family been treated in the region? Please, you have the word.
Thank you, Rune. And I'm very honored to today part of you talk about my written story. Thank you everybody, and thank you Kaiser invited me this event. My name is Razigul Asim, and I born in East Turkestan, Korla chocolate country. Actually, I finished university here and I worked. after some reason, and I came to Albania. I married Albanian, and I'm staying like a simple person. I'm just like the mother, but the wife, and I just staying like, I don't know, I don't have nothing to do with Chinese government or nothing about this. And 2017, my father invited me to go home because it's a long time I didn't see him. He's very old man, and I go home, and I take my 2 kids with me. And first day I got the airport is like Shanghai airport, and there they check me a lot of time, like 2 hours, just to check him, just to ask him where you come from, where you go, who are you, this kind of questions. And after 2 hours they let me go, and I stayed one night in Shanghai, and second day I fly Urumqi. And I go to Urumqi, of course, they check me also here. They ask like kind of same question. Of course, they are not taking me, they didn't come police, but they ask me too much question, and they check me, my stuff. But after there, I go to Urumqi because I had to stay there because my home is very, very large from Urumqi. And that day, my brothers come to me. He's just come to pick me up there, and I stay one night. But that day, when I go to hotel, I enter hotel because they have to check our ID card. I am using ID card here, not passport. When I come here in the hotel, they check me passport. I don't know what is going on. After I came police in hotel, and they said me about my ID card. Your ID card has a red point. The first time I hear about the red point, I'm thinking why I have red point, who I am, what I did. But the police didn't tell me nothing. They checked me, my stuff, everything. And they asked me where you come from, what you did, who are you? That kind of question again. And I be very scary because I don't know what's going on. And even my brother. After that day, second day we moved to our country. I lived. But from that time, I remember that it's very clearly that day is morning. We left from Urumqi to go to Korla. We are going, but they are too much place to check us. Like I remember that maybe because I'm too scared. Maybe some things I didn't remember good, but I guess like 12 police station we have to get checking us. But every time my ID card has a voice, because when I go and they check they are going to with my ID card, and they are warning something, I don't know, and every time the police come to check me, and this is give me a very pressure, and I am going very under pressure here. And after I come to Korla, I stay again one night because Chakuk is very far from Korla. I have to stay one night. And that day I stayed my sister's house because I cannot stay anywhere because I'm very afraid. And I stayed at my sister's home. But that night, and even police come to here. I don't know where they know. And also I'm checking by them. And second day I come again my country, but they have a 5 station again I have to pass. And every time pass also same things, same warning by my ID card, and police coming also ask same question. And that day I come home, like I think like 7 o'clock I arrive at my home, but the police is come to my home that night and ask same question, and I slept. Second day, I just get up. I think I hear the police cars is outside, and my family they are very worried for this. And I stay at my home, come to like 10 police, and they just let me stay there, and they began to ask questions. After they take me my passport, and my passport and my telephone, and they take it. And they said, you don't have to get up from your home, just inside. And we will check you. And you don't have to talk to anybody here, even your husband. I said, okay, and they go. But after that, every day, 3 times, police come to check me in my home, and I stayed. This is pacing by day by, but I try to contact my husband, but police say to me, you don't have to, you cannot contact this. But this is give me very pressure, because my husband, he don't know my problem, what is going on there, and maybe he's worrying my kids, because they are too small, my kids. And I try to tell my relative to contact my husband, and my husband knows what's going on there, ex-husband, of course. And after 1 day, police said to me, after 1 week, police said to me, go to police station, because my home is like 20 meters from the police station. And from police station, I go, and I, of course, is my accompany to police with me, and I go to police station, and they ask me again same questions, I don't know, same question. Who are you? This kind of questions. After they send me home, I go home. But after 2 weeks, they again call me to go police station, and I go. But after this time, I go, and I didn't go out from, like, I stayed 3 days inside. They not do nothing bad, very bad to me, but they take me blood. They said they will check me, and they asked me a lot of questions about the Uyghur Congress, because I was in 2014. I was 1 time in Germany. I didn't, maybe they check up this, and they ask about this and anything about the Uyghurs, what they do, who you meet them, who's what you do in outside China, this kind of questions. Of course, I told them what I did, because I never did something wrong here. And after 3 days, of course, they are not treating very bad, but just 1 time I eat 1 time. They give me food. And after I go out, I go home. Of course, they let me go home. And I think like after maybe 20 days later, the police come again to my home, and they said, we sent you. At that time, they call the concentration camp, they call school of party. I don't know, they call like this. And they said, we sent you school of party. Okay, I said. And I take my kids, because nobody can take care there. I don't have nothing there, my relative, but they cannot. So I tell them I have to take my kids. Okay, they said, but I go to a consultation camp. I stayed 1 day, and I don't know what's the reason here. I stay. After afternoon, the police come again to send me home. They said, you have to stay in the home. After 3 days, they come to government, some people from government, and they said to me, you can apply your passport, you can take, but you have to write some promises to us. And that time when I in home, this problem is every Monday I have to go to because they have rising flags every Monday, and I have to go to the flags. I forgot to tell this. And everybody go, of course, as my home, everybody is who's called Uyghur, they go, not Chinese people. And we go there, and the afternoon, we finish the rising flags, they will have one kind of meeting. And every day, two people to go to talk about why is Uyghurs is terrorist? Why? Because we are tourists. That's why we have to take what Chinese government do to us. That kind of things we have to talk, and everybody have to talk. Even I had to talk because I write about this. Why is outside China is very bad than inside China? What I serve outside, and what is Communist Party is more good than other countries. This kind of things anyway. And after I applied my passport, and I stayed like take my passport, like I stayed like kind of 1 month because I had to go too much place to take them sanctuary. And after my husband come because he that there till now he didn't allow it, but I don't know they allowed or he's come. This is I am not very sure, and he come and take me from go back Albania. But when I come Albania, I have taken still the pressure from Chinese government because I cannot work. If I work, they said me Chinese the company say to you are Uyghur, you cannot work here. So I signed. Actually, I signed because I'm thinking maybe my slime is good for my family, or I slime, but they never let me stay in slime. And that's why I'm talking, this is my story. And I want to say in Uyghur friends, don't be slime. Because if we are slime, they're happening again. They are still do same things to us Uyghur and East Turkestan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for both for your personal story to share that with us. Must be very difficult for you and very emotional for you. And also thank you for calling to all of the Uyghurs who've experienced similar things, but also everybody actually who know about this, to not be silent, but to speak up about this. This is extremely important, and that is what we are trying to contribute to here. Now, I will now turn to Dolkun Isa, the president of the World Uyghur Association. The World Uyghur Association here was mentioned as something that the Chinese were asking Razigul about when they were interrogating her. We can all be shocked about the way they were approaching her and again, and how they kept interrogating her, asking the same questions over and over again. Now, I would like to ask you, because you've been dealing with these issues for a very long time, you've been dealing with the repression of Uyghurs in China for several decades. Now, what Razigul here describes of the police visits and the extreme surveillance, is that a normal experience? Do a lot of Uyghur have a lot of Uyghur had this experience, and how long has this been the case? How did things develop into this very difficult situation? On top of that, I would also just like to ask you to tell a little bit about your own work for the World Uyghur Association, and where you see the future work going, the future effort being put into. Thank you. You have the word, Dolkun Isa.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon for us. Good morning, maybe friends in Washington. And I would like to thank Museum of Movement and the Uyghur PEN jointly organized this side event and this panel. And I also appreciate giving the voice to speak about the ongoing Uyghur genocide And I'm also very happy today sharing same panel with my good friend Nury, commissioners, and Jewher, and my good friends Kaiser, Razigul, and Sairagul, all. It is really amazing. Well, World Uyghur Congress, all work, we are mostly doing advocacy work. And because then so far recently, so many people around the world and no idea on the Uyghur issue, and no idea on the Uyghurs. But actually, the Uyghur issue has a long history. The problem has not a new problem, because most of them people just talking on just the Uyghur issue, and also problem which has the face for the Uyghur just happening recently. Yes, it's wrong. Have a long history. Actually, this problem has been starting since occupation. 1949, East Turkestan has been occupied by Chinese Communist Party. Since then, this problem was starting, but nobody knows this issue, because there is several reasons, of course, why most of people just know recently this. So, World Uyghur Congress main purpose in the rises Uyghur atrocity to the international, to the United Nations. We are, since established, we are very involved with UN, particularly UN human rights mechanism, and European institution, European Parliament, European Commission, European External Service, and also we are working very closely rise the Uyghur issue to different of government and the national parliament, national government, and the civil society, international NGOs. And also we are trying to help the Uyghur refugees case, because Uyghur refugees is one of the critical issue for us, and the time to time Uyghurs escape from China, from East Turkestan, because of the Chinese repression policy. Then most of some country, particularly neighboring country, forcibly deported to the Uyghur refugees to China. Even every day we had such a horrible news. Yesterday, one of the Uyghur was detained in Saudi Arabia as well, and one of them is Turkish, someday some other part. This is the one kind of job of the World Uyghur Congress. We are saving the Uyghur refugees' life. Yeah, so far since established, we are doing such kind of work, and I'm, as you say, I'm the president of the World Uyghur Congress since 2017, but I was the co-founder of the World Uyghur Congress. But China, as I said, was World Uyghur Congress trying to rise this issue to international, but Chinese government trying to hide this reality. Chinese government never allowed, or Chinese government trying to push this Uyghur issue not being to the international issue, to trying to just in the hiding from the international. It is easy to crack down the Uyghur. So that's why time to time World Uyghur Congress we had faced a lot of difficulty, because Chinese government blamed me as a terrorist. World Uyghur Congress is a terrorist organization. So far, most of some world had very little information on Uyghurs. That's why sometimes we had faced a really difficult situation. But however, we had continued fighting all right. Today's Uyghur issue, one of the well-known international issue. But as I say, this is not new issue, but current situation Uyghur is dire. Uyghur community is suffering incredible. The action of the Chinese government has put in very existence Uyghur people on the street. In the particular last 4 years alone, Qin Tiango, who is the Chinese Communist Party secretary in East Turkestan and Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous region, he was the party secretary in Tibet from 2011 to 2016. When he was the party secretary in Tibet, he used a brutal way, cracked on the Tibetan people as well. Then he was the appointed party secretary in East Turkestan in the Uyghur region. Then he used his experiment, and all the Uyghur region, he turned an open air prison. Yes, today we can, and he completely turned whole East Turkestan in the police state. And the Chinese government has subject last 4 years, we can say, to the Uyghur people to mass arbitrary detention. We don't know exactly number, but we believe at least 3 million people are suffering in concentration camp. But surprisingly, 14th of September this year, Chinese government first time give indirect number, as he published white paper, and then saying each year since 2014, each year 1.3 million Uyghur subject to eradication. It is mean if you calculate since 6 years, then around 8 million, 7.8 million Uyghur subject to the eradication. And also Uyghurs subject to mass sterilization, particularly Uyghur women, and other forced birth prevention measures in order to diminish the Uyghur population. This actually Chinese has a long history. This one-child policy started 1984, and also forced labor or the modern slavery on 10,000, hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs people. Recently, ASPI, Australian National Strategy Policy Institute, published a report saying 82,000 Uyghurs transport to the other provinces in China to subject forced labor. And the attempt to destroy unique Uyghur ethnic identity and to possible assimilate Uyghur people into Han-centric China. And destruction of the physical repression of the Uyghur identity, including thousands of mosques and graveyards and other sites of the religious, cultural, and historical importance to the Uyghur people. And is the SP report also saying since 2017, more than 8,000 mosques completely destroyed, another 8,000 is partly destroyed, and banned also Uyghur language. So many schools of public space. Chinese government, actually this is the Uyghur language, religious freedom is one of the freedom, basic, not only basic freedoms, international convention, international law, also guaranteed by the Chinese constitution, the autonomous law. Chinese government not only violated international law, but also violated its own constitution. According to the autonomic law, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Law, Uyghur language, one of the first language, one of the official language, but today is forbidden since 2004. Several religious persecution, including, for example, ban of growing bread, wearing Islamic dress, and the own Quran, separate and forbidden fasting. This is the start 2014, 2015. And separating Uyghur children from these parents. And German scholar Andreas Zanz saying is around 800,000 Uyghur children separate from the family. They are subject indoctrinate and to be royal and the indoctrination royalty to CCP and the Chinese Communist Party Xi Jinping. And also harassment, punishment, and the Uyghur diaspora. Not only Chinese government punishments Uyghurs in the inside Turkestan, also because Chinese law are getting longer, internationally trying to us and the Uyghur diaspora, and who in diaspora, anyone who dare to speak, and immediately Chinese government use different of the hostage diplomacy and use different of way and trying to push and silence. I'm one of them person of this. I have been suffering more than 21 years by the red notes by the Interpol. You know, until 2018 February, until my red notes was delayed, I was detained so many country borders, and even in Europe, and different some other country. And 2017, Chinese government completely cut communication between Uyghur diaspora and the Uyghur family. I can say more than 95% Uyghur who live in exile, Europe, United States, Turkey, around the world, have a lot of contact from family member. We got if some heartbreaking news was happening in the family. I personally also I got since 2017, middle of April, I lost contact with my family member. But 2018, middle of June, I got first heartbreaking news, my mother died. This is just news, but I don't know what condition she passed away. But later I learned from the international media, she died in one of the Chinese concentration camp. And the beginning of 2020, this year, beginning of January, I got second heartbreaking news. My father died, but still I have no idea what condition my father died. Even I don't know. I have no idea. And where is his cemetery is. This is a 21st century. Communication is not a problem at all, but it is a big problem for us today. This is the old things going on now, and just Razigul Asim, she explained what kind of because she was not activist. She has no any criminal things, but just she went to the Turkestan for the family visit, but she explained what kind of problem she had. You know, this is just the example. What I'm saying, what the Razigul Asim saying today is the very general situations the Uyghur community. Most of them people just talking about the people who live in the concentration camps, 3 million people, 4 million people. Some international scholars say over the 1 million people. However, not only the problem is people who live in concentration camp, but rest of them million. Chinese government saying Uyghur population 12 million, but we believe more than 5 million. Whatever, 20 million or 12 million. Rest of them 12 million people who live on the outside the camp, also same problem, because Chinese government already turned whole the region as a police state and the surveillance technology. Area is face recognition, voice recognition camera, and every movement, every daily life, and threatened and monitored by the Chinese Communist Party, Chinese police, security service. Then and the people maybe is outside people. There is maybe some advantage they can eat on time, and maybe you can eat Uyghur food on time, but they are feeling not safe. They don't know. They are staying with the fear every moment, because next hours, next day, what will be happening? Nobody knows, because you don't have a right to ask what is the reason. So simply because you born Uyghur, because of your ethnicity, you can very simply take to the concentration camp and disappear. This is the situation. So we are all to the Congress trying to raise these two issues internationally. What's all the things now is so many camp survivor is made testimony. Maybe we will listen after me to the Sairagul.
Exactly.
Some many other camp survivor also talking. So many international media reported. So no, it is no any reason to silence. It is a genocide. So I have to stop maybe.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for a lot of information and a lot of commitment also, which is very, very important. And again, the call for speaking up. Now, you've mentioned a lot of very, very important topics that unfortunately we don't have time to cover in detail today. We could be talking for hours about both the surveillance and also the different kind of repressions that the Chinese government puts on Uyghurs outside of China that you have been experiencing yourself. But you mentioned several times, and also the others have mentioned the camps and the witnesses that have spoken out about the camp survivors. And we are so lucky here to have one of the most courageous and one of the most important witnesses of the camps with us, Sairagul Sauytbay. She served as a teacher in one of the camps and saw some of the really horrific treatment of the camp inmates, also experienced it on her own body before several months later she was able to escape to Kazakhstan. So now let us go into the inside of the camps from a camp survivor's personal experience. Please, Sairagul, we have spoken to each other many times before. I know your story, and I know the courage it has taken for you to stand before everybody and talk about this. I would like you to tell us, unfortunately, shortly, your personal story and what conclusions you draw from it.
Yeah, for raising for languages. So I'm the interpreter for Sairagul. So she will talk in her languages. So I will be interpreting to the English.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, mushe bugünge mühim faaliyetine uyuşturgan Şvet hükümeti Malmö şehirlik hükümetke yana muşun uyuşturuşlarga şunun bilen birle katnaşıkçılarga yana bizni görüp o'tgan eng aziz ko'rganlarga rahmetimni bildiraman, yana o'zimdan hurmatimni bildiraman.
First of all, I have to be appreciated for the organizer, especially the Malmö Culture, the Moments Museum, as well as other organizer. So same time, I really appreciate for other colleagues on these panels, which have presented that the situation in East Turkestan.
Benim ismim Sairagul Sauytbay, milletim Kazak. Men Şarkı Türkistan'ın Kazak Autonomous oblusida tug'ilib cho'ng bo'ldim.
My name is Sairagul Sauytbay. I am ethnically Kazakh in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous region. I born in İli Kazakh Autonomous Oblast.
U yer bizning necha avloddan beri, ata-bobomizdan beri yashab kelayotgan o'zimizning makonimiz. Sharqiy Turkiston aslida bir mustaqil davlat bo'lgan. Ondan 1949-yilda Xitoy davlati tomonidan ishg'ol qilib besib olingan zamin.
The East Turkestan is our ancestors' homeland, and we are centuries living here from the long time ago. And our country, East Turkestan, has been occupied in 1949 by the CCP. Since then, we are under their control.
Men o yerda doktor, muallim va maktab direktori qatorli xizmatlarda ishladim.
When I was in East Turkestan, I was working as a doctor, medical doctor, as well as that the kindergarten, as the chief of the kindergarten.
Xitoy davlati Sharqiy Turkistonning Qozoq, Uyg'ur, Qirg'iz qatorli yerli asosiy millatlarini millat sifatida qirg'inchilik qilib yo'qotish bu genotsid siyosatini aslida necha yil burun planlagan bir uzun yillik plan.
This today's situation in East Turkestan is not simply recently has happened, but was long ago. The Chinese government had a plan for such the Turkic group in East Turkestan, like Uyghur, Kazakh, Kyrgyz. They want to erase them from this country and ethnically.
90-yılların 5'indeki yaşap bizden halkımız yürütülen bu mecburluk tuğut çekler siyaseti. Ondan 2006 yılı bu tilimizin emsini çektirip milli tildeki mekteplerin emsini Xitay mekteplerine koşup mecburi alda Xitay tiliga mecburi alda Xitay tilini umumlaştırış. Muşu erkek kılımcılık siyasetinin bir görünüşleri idi.
Actually, is the beginning of 90s. They already had started like birth control in our region, and that's maybe is the beginning of how the others are tightening our situation for more in that pushing to erasing these nations from that region, as well as we can see that from 2006 that the Chinese government is changed the education policy. So there is no anymore like local autonomous region languages or minority languages in schools or education system.
Xitoy davlati shunday qilib bizning tilimizni, dinimizni, madaniyatimizni asosida yo'qotishga boshlagandan keyin biz ailamiz bilan Qozog'istonga ko'chib ketmoqchi bo'ldik. Lekin Xitoy organlari mening pasportimni majburiy tortib olib, mening ailam bilan birga Qozog'istonga ketishimga yo'l qo'ymadi.
For this reality is forcing as our family, we decide to move to Kazakhstan, which our neighbors. So that was at that time we are preparing for a move to Kazakhstan from China, but unfortunately I'm not lucky enough to apply for passport.
Ailem aşina qilib mening yo'ldoshim pensiyaga chiqqan bir muallim bo'lgan, keyin pensiyaga chiqqanki bolalarimni elib Qozog'istonga ko'chib ketdi. Biz beshida ailamiz bilan men beshida aloqa qilib turardik, biroq keyin Xitoy davlati bizning chet el bilan aloqa qilishimizni butunlay chekladi. Aşina qilib ailem bilan bo'lgan hamma munosabatlarim uzilib qoldi.
Therefore, this reason, as a family member, I stayed because I had no passport. stay in the home in China or Xinjiang European region. And my two child and my husband, actually my husband is retired from his teaching job. He was teacher, of course. So then the family member was moved to Kazakhstan, but not me.
Xitoy dövləti bu Şərq Türkistan haqqında genosid siyasətini 2016 yılın axırında rəsmi başladı.
So I can say that from 2016, China is starting this camp for the genocide for our Turkic ethnicity in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous region.
Benim qoşunlarım, tanışlarım, dostlarım, yurttaşlarım aslında 20 kişinin Xitay saqçıları tərəfindən tutulub, belgisiz taraflara akitilib, aslında bunlar yox çıxa başladı.
From at the times of my neighbors, my colleagues, my friends, my family members, day by day they are just disappearing for somewhere else. We don't know where they are taken. So it's how I feel scary in this time.
Gerçi onların nerede aktif atkanlıqın bilmesimi adamlar şunda qoqat, hem de bunlar özlerinin iş kiyimlerini bir sumkalarga silip, bosıqı ilip koyup, hem de 20 kişide besip kirip, ben uyumdan ilip tutmanğa baxta, özlem bilen ağaç gitmem de, aşında qoqunuş bilen, tayarlıq bilen yatıdığan boldu.
There's not only me, it's all around me, who I know, and even the whole the region, I believe, we had to prepare for all our clothes, all kind of clothes, so prepare for the bag. Maybe tonight or sometime the police will come take us, and we have to prepare for our baggage. Otherwise, we will be taken without clothes. So this is how we are stressing all the time. When is my turn? Is coming for me.
Ешқандай күннен болмысымы 2017 жыл біріншіден başlап, мен мұмыш genocide siyasatının құрбаны болдum.
From 2017, I also part of this genocide policy.
Xitay saqçıları meni 20 kişide uyunu tutub ekitib, ailemnin Qozog'iston ekanligini bana qilib, meni so'roq qilib, qo'rqitib, besim qilib meni urdi.
So that 2017, one day at the midnight, the police come to my home and take me to the police station without asking anything. They beat me and asking where's my family. They are in Kazakhstan.
Bunda kişiler kiyimici qaytılıp durdu. Aşında qılıp 2017 yılı 11. ayda men mecburi aldaşı faşist konslagerge apırılıp eşedik qamalgan adamlarga Xitay tilinden ders berdigan malum bolup işleşke mecbur oldum.
This kind of taking from home with unknown time as they want, it's repeat again many times for my personally release and take. Then 2017 in November, I officially was appointed as a teaching as a Chinese language in the camp for those detainees.
Olar meni uyga apagandın keyin mecburlab mahbetlikni saqlash kelishimnomasiga qo'l qo'ygizdi.
The first I have to do is I have to sign for one conditional agreement, which I have to keep the secret of this, what I seeing in this camp. So I have to sign on paper first.
Aşağı faşist konslagerde ayal balalar çoğunlar bolup 2500'dek adam qamalgan. Ayalların əmisinin çişini düşürüp, qollarga, közleri, putlarga kişen selingan.
The year I was teaching, in that camp around 2,500 people. They included all the young women, men, and everyone has been shackled. As well, everyone has been the hair was taken for that. So I am teaching for them and the camp for Chinese.
Bu adamların içinde cemiyetin her sayısının adamlar var. Mesela sodugerler, baylar, devlet hizmetkarları, andın adi buxorlar, malcılar, dikanlar, degende artistler, andın cemiyetin aldığındaki gözü uçup bizimlik, hürmetlik adamlar.
Among them, all kind of people I can see, the businessmen, teachers, or intellectual, all kind of the people was inside in this camp. They are especially targeting the intellectual first, of course.
Adamlarga uyada ruhani taraftan türlük rezil basılık paylık ruhi taraftan ularga besim kılıç bilen birle türmedeki faşist konslager işideki kamera ornatılmagan, kamerasız uyda, bunu özleri karı uy dep ataydı. Aşı karı uyda ularga türlük rezilvaslarını paylanıp adamlara kıynaş yazılaş ep barıdır.
The one thing I would like to mention is some rooms in this concentration camp is without the camera censoring, camera control. In that room, what's going on, we don't know. But we know that's the kind of the cell which they are torturing, is all unimaginable way of torturing those camp people.
Adamlar kamalgan kameralar bilen koridorların en yerine bütünley akıllı kameralar ornatılgan bolup yerdeki kamalgan adamların her bir iş hareketi 24 saat tutuştu boludu.
The other part of the except that the special room, the other part of the whole camp, everywhere is a surveillance camera and the controller with all activity, with everything and everywhere.
Ayarlar bilen kızlar ne o yerde ayarlar bilen kızlar cinsi bastıncılığa uçurap durdu daim yine adamlardan mecburlep tuğmaz kılık etediğin okul doğrularına yine tuğmaz kılık etiş bilen birle adamların uşun nerv sistemasyonu bozulduğuna yine salabatlıkka naytı ziyanlık boğan okul doğrularını kılışka mecbur buludur.
In that camp, I also would like to mention about that, especially for young women and women will be subjugated very badly, and they will very badly by the police or someone else in that inside the camp, raping them and sterilization for the women, especially for that the all kind of unbelievable things is happening in this camp.
Memo жазыланып, харикапыр жазыланған вақтымда ашы камерасыз қары үй içindeki жаза құраларын көйген вақта өз көзем шенбедім. Егер көзі білен көмеге адам болса, 21 әсірде мұшындақ жаза құралары бар деген әркез шенмейді.
As a teacher, when I have the chance into those cells, which are torturing those people, when I saw those tools, equipment, whatever, so that how they are torturing, using those things for those people. If I'm not seen by my own eye, I don't believe such things in 21st century still exist.
2018 3. ayda ular meni kampadan elip kelip, hem de ular meni qaytadan cinayetçi sifatida bir de 3 yıllık faşistik kozlarga qamaydiganlarni uqtadi.
In 2018 in March, they changed for their detention way of me, and they said that I have been sent to the other detention center for 3 years. This is official. How do you say, the internet to the camp.
Men özüm görüp guva bolgan aşı faşistik konserler qaytadan kirip kalmasa özümden kirip çıkmaydiganlygymdy biletdim. Aşında kılıp men emde bu berber aldımgımı kendimge mansım berber ölüm bolgandan keyin tawkal kılıp Kazakistan'a keçip ketişke mecbur oldum.
So I know I have been experienced many years in the camp, so I know everything what's going on, the situation I understand well. So if I take to again for this camp, I don't think I will be come out in live. So I decide find a way escape from China to Kazakhstan.
Berber ölüm bolgan keyin ölüş aldıda iş bolmaganda ballarımды bir körüp atsam. Eger tirik kaladigan bolsam, muşu Xitayning faşistik, muşu genosidin bütün dunyoga aşkarlayman dep aşı hamma qiyinchilikqa tavakkal qilib xatarga bosh tikib Qozog'istonga keçip keldim. Ailem bilen görüştüm u yerda.
So why I decided anyway I will die. So better let me try. Before I die, I have to meet with my children who is in my neighboring country in Kazakhstan. So I just tried to go to push me to this difficult way to escape from China to Kazakhstan. And I'm lucky enough to come to the Kazakhstan and met with my 2 children and my husband.
Qozog'iston Milliy Xavfsizlik idorasi tarafidan tutulup, ular meni Xitoyga qaytarib etmekçi boldi. Lekin Qozog'iston xalqi meni Xitoyga qaytarib etishga hammasi qarshi turdi. Andan xalqaro matbuotlarning hammasi bu ishni yezib ko'tagandan keyin ashunda qo'rqib meni birinchi qator Xitoyga qaytarmay ep qoldi.
So when I escaped from the China, I decided what I saw the brutal concentration camp. What I saw those things, I had to tell that media for that all situation, the world must be now what's going on this fascistic camp. So when I come to Kazakhstan, the Kazakhstan police department, they want to deport me back to China, but the Kazakh people, they are not allowing them to do so. So they have been stopped it. And as well as that the world, the human rights organizations, such as UN organizations, they are helping me to stop to deport to China.
Қазақстанда ашта кылып мени чегарадан канунсуз өтү деген менен айыплап мени түрмөгө солодо уяда 9 ай түрмөдө отадым.
But anyway, that in Kazakhstan, I also have been detained for 9 months in prison, and I waited that year.
Қазақстан өкмөтү менен саясий канактык тилген өтүнүшүнөн рет кылды. Улар бермеди мага. Yana ikkinchi qatdan yana Xitoyga qaytarish xavfiga duch keldim. O'sha vaqtda xalqlardan yordam so'radim. Andan Birleşken Milletler Teşkilatı'nın yordam bilan Shvetsiya davlati bizni qabul qilib, ailamiz bilan birga Shvetsiyaga ko'chirib keldi.
So during this 9 months time, I applied for Kazakhstan as an asylum, for political asylum, but I have been refused. They are not accepting my application. But I'm lucky enough for United Nations Human Rights Organization helped me resettle to Sweden here. So later I come to Sweden with my family.
Men müştəq ikinci qadam ayatlıqda geçiyor hükümetiga nayta rahmetimni bildiraman. Men Qozog'iston hech qanday yo'q hozirgacha o'sha Xitoyning jinoiy siyosatini butunlay oshkorlash bilan kelyapman.
So that I first of all I really appreciate for the Swedish government who give me the second life for leaving me as a free country like that. I really appreciate. Since then I'm trying to all my best to telling the story which I had experienced in the camp.
Mening 3 talabim bor. Hozir bizni ko'rib o'tmagan, ammo siyosatlardan, matbuotlardan yana butun dunyodan shuni talab qilmanki, birinchisi bu butun dunyo davlatlarining bu ishni Xitoy bilan faqat Amerika bilan Xitoy o'rtasidagi surkilish bir savdo urushi deb qaramaslikni umid qilaman.
I would like to ask to my hope for those audience and others, the politicians in the world who listening, who is attending for this conferences, is I would like to tell them this is not between China and the United States like economy war or something else, but this is more serious matter.
Çünkü bu fakat Turkistan halkının meselesi emas. Xitoy davlatining bu faşizmlik rejimi, faşizmlik bu siyosati butun dunyoda yashayotgan har bir odamning erkinligi, demokratiyasi va ularning taqdiri bilan bevosita bog'liq. Shunga buni butun dunyoviy masala deb qarashni umid qilaman.
This is not only for the East Turkestan people. This is for human being, for worldwide. As a human being, we have to stand up to stop such brutal fascistic regime in China.
Andan ikkinchi talabim Amerika hukumati bu oldida doklad usundi, bu irqiy qirg'inchilik tonish to'g'riliq. Shu doklad bo'yicha bu Xitoyning sharqi xalqini ilib borayotgan siyosatini irqiy qirg'inchilik rasmiy aldab tonishni e'tirof qilishni umid qilaman.
Far as I know, this United States government was declared this is the ethnic genocide, and I also wish this is the worldwide, all the countries that recognize this is the ethnic genocide which happening in China.
Üçüncü talabim Prezident Trump qo'l qo'ygan Sharqiy Turkiston xalqiga munosabatli bo'lgan qonunlar bor har xil. O'sha qonunlarning rasmiy alda o'zining amaliy kuchini ko'rsatishni, rasmiy alda amaliy kuchini ko'rsatishni va Amerika hukumati yana Yevropa parlament bizni ko'rib o'tirgan ammo siyosiy yo'llar matbuotlar amisi bu masalani bir dunyoviy masala nazarda tutib bir muhim masalalar qatorida qarab Sharqiy Turkiston xalqi uchun unumli harakatlarga o'tib Xitoyning bu rezil siyosatini to'xtatishga unumli bir harakatlar ilib borishini umid qilaman.
Lastly, I would like to ask for that as President Trump has been signed for those paper for the Uyghur Human Rights Law Act. For that signed paper, I would like to this act is in the real. It's not only for United States but other countries in the world also to support this Uyghur Act law in the United States has been signed. Thank you very much.
Rahmet. Allah.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your witness account and also for your conclusions and thoughts about it. Like I mentioned in the beginning, Sairagul has just published a book about her experiences. It's come out in German, but it will also appear in English, I think next summer. These are very important witness accounts, and her experiences need to be told to the world and spread to the world. One of the things that you mentioned, Sairagul, is also the help that you have gotten, after all, from, you mentioned the American government that has recognized what is going on in East Turkestan as a genocide, from the Swedish government who is hosting you now, and also from the Kazakhstani people that would not let you be extradited to China. So I think in between all these stories of suffering and of terrible, violent and oppressive structures, we also see small glimpses of solidarity and hope that I think that we can hold on to. One of the things you mentioned in connection with this, and also all of you others actually have mentioned this, is the threat of being silenced. And Kaiser, I know as the president of the Uyghur PEN, you are one of the people working hard against this silencing, because one way to silence a whole people is actually also to stop their voices from within the people, and that is often the writers and poets. And you've been working now for a long time on the imprisonment and detention, and also the pressure put on Uyghur intellectuals and writers, especially detention in China itself, but also pressure on them outside. So now I would like you, just in the last few minutes we have, to give us a brief overview of how the situation is, how your work is proceeding, and then maybe also, because we haven't really gotten to that yet, mention why this panel is called Never Again. This is, I believe, you who decided to call it that, and what that connects to, and how you see this issue. You have the word, please, Kaiser.
So much for you moderate such wonderful panel. First of all, of course, I appreciate for Malmö Culture, our friend Rune Steenberg, which have been given us this opportunity to talk here. Yes, as you mentioned, this freedom of expression is a basic human rights. Everyone should speak. It's given by Creator, not allowed taken by any others. So this is very basic rights we have. But today, the Uyghurs or the East Turkestan people like Uyghur, Kazakh, and other Turkic minority have not such rights. As you mentioned, more than a decade, from 2006 or 5, I started working with PEN International. PEN International is stand up for without any border, without any ethnic background, any political background, whomever, everyone must have this right for freedom of expression. But in our country, where we born, calling East Turkestan, it's Chinese call them Uyghur Autonomous region. Autonomy means rule by yourself. But unfortunately, we don't have such rights since this occupation. Maybe in the beginning we have some for autonomic linguistic and translation rights, but as well as very basic education rights, but after 90s, there is not such rights. The autonomy means the people have to rule by themselves. But today, there's after especially this 2016 or 15, we can see there's about more than 360, which we have been listed by some researcher, the intellectuals, especially for the professors, lecturers, writers, artists, publishers, has been taken by the police to unknown place. We don't know, maybe imprisoned, maybe somehow they are forcibly disappeared. We don't know. That's we have no evidence, and I can't tell you where they are exact. until they are released or they come out, we can't justify it either. So such situation is more horrible, as our colleagues in the before from Jewher and till Sairagul, everyone has been mentioned their situation. I don't need to repeat it again. So today, as a PEN, we really stand up to speak it up. Silence is just another kind of genocide. If you're silent, you will disappear. You have to stand up and you have to defend your own rights. For this reason, we call those friends, give us this opportunity to talk as a like country like Sweden or Scandinavia. This part of world have no idea. We cannot think about that. Even we telling this story, and of course, sometimes I also don't believe what I am telling, what I am saying. I asking myself, is that still is happening? Unbelievable story. So the Swedish people is difficult to understand that as well. For this reason, we Uyghur PEN and the Malmö Culture Moments Museum, we have been managed this part of the Safe Haven program. So I really appreciate for everyone's attending here. Of course, because of the time, it's until 4 o'clock. Maybe you have a little bit time for asking questions. I don't know. So I had to stop here because all other my colleagues have been told all story. Of course, there's an endless story. We can continue many hours, many days, maybe years. So appreciate Rune. So please, if there's any other question for any other panelists, other speakers, so they are probably welcome to answer us for that.
Thank you very much, Kaiser. We actually don't have any questions, unfortunately. I don't know if that's due to technical problems of getting the questions here. Of course, there are many questions, and I have many questions for each of the speaker, but we also have run out of time and we need to wrap up. So I thank you very much for getting together. We have touched on a lot of very important topics that can be fleshed out further. We have introduced the speakers and where they work, so they can be accessed via email through their working places, and you can approach all of us, including myself, to get more information about what has been going on. And for the last part of the session today, I am wrapping up and passing on the word to Fredrik Elk, who has been organizer of this session. So thank you to all of the panelists. Thank you to everybody who was here. And please, Fredrik, you have the last word.
Thank you so much, Rune, and thank you to you for your very strong and very brave testimonies. Thank you so much, and thank you those of you who are not here in our space for your valuable knowledge. Thank you for sharing so much to us. And thank you. It was very important talk, very important information that we got. And as you mentioned, this is part of the Safe Havens Conference that is usually a physical meeting, but in times of COVID, we meet over the internet. So every month we have a Freedom Talk, and the Freedom Talks are part of the Safe Havens Conference. The next session in the conference will be on December 3rd at 1:30 Central European Time, when we have two roundtable discussions with Farida Shahid and Karima Benoun, and some very prominent and important organizations in the arts rights justice sector for freedom of speech and artistic freedom. So welcome them. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for talking, and everyone who joined us and watched us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.